Welcome to the Beyond the Vines podcast, where I interview local business owners in Sonoma County to highlight small business and grow our community. I'm your host, Amy Ehlers, a mom, realtor, and Sonoma County native, and I'm excited to connect you to some amazing people in this beautiful area that we call home. Welcome back to the Beyond the Vines podcast. Thank you again for listening. I am just really loving having all these local small businesses come into our office here and being able to record and meet with them and hear all about the faces behind these businesses. So I really appreciate you for listening and for giving all of these local businesses your support. The feedback's just been fantastic. So I am here today with Travis Bradley. He is the owner of Moonlight Landscapes. I want to tell you a little bit about him before we dive into chatting. He is a local landscape contractor with Moonlight Landscapes. He has over 20 years of experience in landscape design and installation, as well as a degree in environmental studies from Sonoma State University, where he studied city and regional planning. He is also a father of two wonderful children, Diego and Adeline. I've seen their pictures all over Instagram. They're adorable. And husband to his beautiful wife. Is it Adriana? Adriana, perfect.
Well done.
Awesome. He loves golf, skiing, traveling, and of course, landscaping. So welcome so much, Travis. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. It's funny because I was just listening to another podcast because what you and I have been chatting about, that's what we do all day. I was listening to another podcast and they were saying a lot of times homeowners think about like home renovation, but then they don't realize like landscape renovation. They don't think about how they need to, over time, their yard's going to need to be updated, you know?
I think that's a really good point.
Yes.
And as a landscape contractor, I've always, respected that.
Yeah.
I'm always last.
Yes.
People are remodeling their bathroom, their kitchen. There's a lot of things that come first.
For sure.
Literally, we're going to do a big landscape project this summer, and they're still building the house. So literally, everything comes first.
Yep. And then
step. Landscaping. But that's a little bit different because I've got to get in there for some things a little earlier. But you're right. Typically, people wait till the very end.
Yes.
Not everybody.
Right.
Not everybody.
Depends on your priorities, probably.
It depends on your priorities, and people are people, and they like different things. Some people really appreciate an outdoor space. So that really came into life in 2020 when people were stuck at home, right?
Exactly.
And people wanted a nice place to go
hang
live.
out.
And, I think it's undervalued. It's probably the largest space in your house.
Yeah.
Not always.
That's a good point.
But it's probably the largest living space. And I don't know. I try to treat it that way and make it a place to go. I have a really small house in Santa Rosa. And, we love to entertain. So, but we only do it, 6 to 8 months.
Summer.
Yeah. So
that's true. Or like for us, I think about in our house, we have a good sized front yard, but we're not out there as much. So it's more like maintaining it and keeping it decent for curb appeal reasons. But our backyard, we are out there constantly. So for us, like that is a priority is to have that updated.
And I think that's true for most people.
Yeah.
You want the curb appeal in front. Some people don't have the backyard space and they want to do something in the front yard.
Right.
But most people, at least in California, we have fences. We want privacy.
Exactly.
But generally, front is curb appeal, backyard's living space. And I think, people want more and more back there, stuff to do.
For sure. Especially, I feel as our kids get older, it's like such a nice place for everybody to come together and hang out. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And entertaining and parties and I love to just sit in my backyard and just enjoy that peace and quiet because I have kids too.
Yes. Sometimes it's the only escape.
You know what? I'm going to go outside for 5 minutes.
Well, and you'll appreciate this. Like my kids are at the age now where we've gotten rid of the trampoline, which I'm sorry. The trampoline was so much fun, but that was an eyesore. So we have some pretty furniture out there now. I feel like we're like moving up. We still have like a play structure out there, which I just told a neighbor he could actually have it because the kids have been telling me they're done with it and they would like the lawn space right there. But I'm like not quite ready to let go of those like memories, which I'm a very good purger. But that play structure to me, I'm like, oh, that's like the final little childhood thing that we have. So, but it's funny like how we're now able to kind of move from like a kid friendly backyard to more of like a fun. We got like the fire pit going because our kids are out there. Yeah, it's funny to see how your yard transitions with you through like life phases.
So you can imagine as a contractor. I come in and people have different functions and needs and I have to ask all the questions, Do you have kids? Do you have dogs?
Right. Well, because you can put in like dangerous things for dogs,
for sure,
right? And so you gotta watch that. Mm-hmm.
But then they're
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of dog?
Right.
Is it a big messy dog?
Right.
Is it going to kick the gravel around?
Yep.
Do we want to do gravel? Maybe
Those are
concrete.
good questions.
So there's lots of good important
Mm-hmm.
questions about
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it. People are, I'm moving. I'm finally.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically like a time when people come to me,
Yep.
hey, we're finally moving on from this kid phase.
Exactly.
It hurts me this much, but I'm going to get rid of the play
my yard's gonna be
structure,
pretty.
and I have no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so either I give them ideas, or a lot of, everyone's different. Some
Yep.
people are like, I know what I want.
Yep.
I know what I
Totally.
want, and
Draw it out for you already.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll come prepared. But sometimes that's not the case, and
Yeah.
I'll get into the design phase, and so.
That is so fun. Okay, so backing up, how did you get into landscaping?
Yeah, good question. Well, the short answer is my father owns a landscaping
Mhm.
company here in Petaluma.
Right.
I won't get into why we're not together, but it's family and it's hard.
That can be hard,
We
for sure.
still are very close, and it's
Good.
not that we don't get along, but
Good.
he runs his company and we do projects together actually.
Cool.
But essentially, I was working for him, in 2007, 2008. The
Mhm.
economy took a dip.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of went back into the working world, did some landscaping stuff. I also worked at Crate and Barrel
Oh,
in Puerto
fun.
Madera, and I lived in the city.
Yeah.
And that only lasted a couple of years. And I
Mhm.
said, you know what, that's it. I'm going to go back to school.
Right.
And so I took a couple more classes at the JC that I
Mhm.
needed, and I transferred to Sonoma State, and I studied environmental studies with a
Very cool.
concentration in city regional planning.
Mhm.
And out of college, I went and worked in Berkeley for a company called Placeworks,
Mhm.
and they were a consulting firm, and they would consult with cities and municipalities around, city planning,
Mhm.
redoing, general plan updates. And I did it for about a year, and I was really bored.
Right.
I was really bored.
Yep.
It was CEQA. It was environmental quality.
Got
So
it.
taking a project and kind of ripping it apart and saying, okay,
Mm.
these are the impacts, and these are the mitigation requirements. And so, all the while I was walking from my car after a long commute in
Right.
Berkeley, and I was
Right.
walking by these houses going, oh, this is what I would do with that if I were and
Interesting.
every morning, and I would tell myself, and then it just, day by day, I was like, this is a
Mhm.
long day, long commute. I'm not enjoying it. I went to school,
Mhm.
it is what it is. I need to just swallow it and move
Yeah.
on. So anyway, I did, and I went and worked for Gardeners Guild, who's in Richmond, a large landscaping outfit, landscape construction and maintenance.
Okay.
And I was kind of an operations manager for their exterior maintenance department. And I ran a book of business in Marin. And I did that for 6 years. I had a great job. They treated me great. But the commute
Yeah.
and everything, and actually more than anything, it was the kids and daycare and having, driving all the way to Richmond.
Yeah.
And as my son got older, I had to pick him up at 12:30 or whatever,
Right.
and 3 or whatever it was. And it was just a headache, and I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out the scheme, how I was going
Yeah.
to work it out. And at the same time, I was just getting a lot of phone calls on the side for side projects. And I bit the bullet one day, and
Amazing.
I planned for it. I let the company know, and I've never looked back.
That's so cool.
That's not true.
I mean, I think every entrepreneur probably looks back. For a
Right,
second.
right. Winter is slow, that kind of thing. But
Yes,
really,
yes.
genuinely, I don't look back. I really
amazing.
appreciate more than, being able to run my own business and have my own time. The
Mhm.
time I get with my kids,
Yep.
you can't take that.
Yep.
You can't take that away from me.
For sure.
Um,
For sure.
and I think about other people that do
Mhm.
commute and spend their lifetime
Yep.
away from, their kids. And so I'm really,
Yeah.
really fortunate and grateful that I get
Have
that as a piece of all this too.
For sure. For sure.
yeah.
That's amazing. I love that you kind of would look at other people's yards, in Berkeley and be like, this is what I would do. And that light bulb kind of moment going off and maybe what you should be doing.
Yeah. And,
Mhm.
you have, I think we
Mhm.
all have those reminders. I
Oh,
drive
yeah.
around all the time,
Mhm.
and, my dad's been doing it since 1991. And
Wow.
so I could have gone way back and told you that he used to quiz me on plants and all that. So this really started a long time ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, it takes, biting the bullet and jumping off the cliff to go
Right.
do it. And I think it takes,
Which is scary.
and I think about all the jobs, the Crate and Barrel, and all the
Mhm.
things I did, and
Yeah.
the jobs in Petaluma, and as invaluable as they seemed, they were so valuable, and they
For sure.
gave me all the customer service
I
skills.
was just going to say just people skills alone
people
from Crate and Barrel.
skills.
Yeah.
It's huge, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm grateful for the whole journey,
The whole
you know,
path.
the whole thing. As painful as it might have been,
The twists and the turns.
that's it. I made it here. So
yep, isn't that crazy?
It's
Amazing.
crazy.
So, what services do you offer clients, and what kind of are your favorite projects that you do with those services?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think we do all kinds of projects from design to build. Not all projects require design. Sometimes it's a lot of back and forth, or a Pinterest board that we share. And we, you know, some people are plant people, some people are less plant people. So it depends on the project and the scale. But usually when it involves, you know, like a new patio or a new lawn, we need square footage. And usually people want to, you know, it's a bigger ticket item. They want to visualize that. So we go to the design phase. And it's a process, you know. It starts with a meeting, and we talk about favorite that, you know, needs first. You know, how much patio space do you need? Do you want a lawn? Are you against lawn? Is it a small space? Do you want to just plant it? So really depends on what the needs are. But we go from there, and it's kind of a process. And if it is a design process, I'll draw some pictures, and I'll draw like a design patio shape and lawn shape maybe, and then go back to the customer and say, hey, what do you think? Here's a couple sketches. And they'll be like, I like this. I don't like this. All right, I'm going to mix them together, and then we'll do another meeting. So it's kind of a process. And the more it is like that slower process, the better it is, and the more we can tie it into somebody's budget. You know, it's so easy for, say, an architect to go just draw some wonderful pictures, and then maybe somebody buys that design, and they go to a contractor, and they're like, you know, and they're blown away. They're like, I can't afford all this. And then it's kind of a redesign thing. So the more the design and that bidding process are kind of tied together, and with a lot of honest conversations about what things cost and that kind of thing, this, you know, the better it ends up.
Definitely.
And you know, I think you know, it's big spaces, and landscaping can get expensive
for sure,
but it doesn't have to be. And I think I'm really good at, you know, not changing people's minds, but you know, telling them, okay, well, that's an option that's on the higher end. You know, one good example is like retaining walls. A lot of people are like, oh, I have this sloped backyard and I want to terrace it. I want to make flat space. And it's like, okay, you're talking a lot of money, you know, building retaining walls, creating flat spaces so always going with the, you know, the grade that you've got if you can. But hey, you know, you don't build those retaining walls. You can put the money into, you know, the nicer patio or the bigger patio or whatever it is, you know. But trying to help people, you know, make better decisions.
Some alternatives.
And offer alternatives, and and you know, with concrete and patios, it's, you know, there's different materials. So it's like, okay, let's get the functionality, and then let's pick the material. You know, maybe if you want this much concrete, but your budget's here, let's just do like plain, you know, maybe add some color to the concrete. But, you know, and don't go for, oh, I love flagstone, you know, and then try and, you know, skimp on the rest because you wanted the flagstone, that kind of thing. So
those are good points. And it's so helpful to have like an expert to help with those decisions, and to be like, okay, this is great, but maybe, you know, here are some other things I've seen or done, just some options for people.
Alternatives. I think everybody needs an alternative, especially when it comes to money too, you know.
For sure.
But like, you know, there's also products that, you know, you might think are great, and you see them places. Go to a winery and you see decomposed granite, you know, those gold walkways, which are great, and you're in there in the summer, but you should go in the winter. They're kind of messy, and I do DG.
I've heard not
we use stabilizer, but it's got its ups and downsides. You know? So and
that's a good point.
But things like decomposed granite and gravel, those are great ways to save. You know, concrete's more expensive. So those are great ways to save. And maybe if you've got a bigger yard and you want to do like a little concrete pad, and then, you know, a larger gravel space, and then plantings around it. And then the other thing to do is do things in phases. So do it right, however you're going to do it. Design it if need be, so that you follow all the right steps. But concrete's usually first. Hardscapes, walls, concrete, stonework, that kind of thing. But it's also the most expensive. So sometimes people are in, you know, sticker shock, like, oh, I gotta do this. So sometimes that's the thing you do first, and, you know, wait till next year and do the planting and that,
That's really good advice. Yeah, that it can be done in phases like that.
I say that and we talk about it a lot, clients and I. It rarely happens.
Because they want it done.
Yeah.
We're all that
like
myself.
that,
Yeah.
Not everybody,
Yeah.
Sometimes people have the patience, but generally people find a way, like I said, to let's not do concrete. Let's do it, and we'll do the gravel or the flagstone and set in soil, and
Right.
there's always a way. But yeah, generally people want to get it done. Yeah.
I can recognize that myself. I get it.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same.
Totally.
I moved into my house and I was like, I got to get it done.
So your approach is very personalized and detail oriented. How do you ensure that each client's vision is fully translated into that final design? Sounds like a lot of collaboration during the process.
It's kind of what I was just saying, that first meeting. Yeah. Just being really honest. The first thing I do is, we walk around outside. We don't sit in a room, we walk around, look at the space. And I just listen and I say, what is it you're looking for? Some people don't know. Some people want me to, tell them my ideas, which is always a part of the process. But some people are like, okay, so I definitely love entertaining. I have a dog. I want patio space. This old patio's not working, so I need to get it out of here. And, this is my idea over here. And so I listen and I gather their ideas, mostly about functionality and form, and then talk about aesthetics and that thing and how I can help. But then, I turn it over to me and I say, okay, these are some suggestions.
Right.
Your ideas are great, size-wise. I get where you're going, but maybe material, and we talk about budget too. Yeah. And, right off the bat, and I don't want to start designing something that's not going to work. Right. But mostly it's listening, and then I kind of come in and give people my 2 cents on how I think we could do it from a design perspective and that kind of thing. But yeah, like I said, it's a process, and the more it's a process and a back and forth, the more we can meet the client's expectations. And I think, we just did one over here on Keokuk. We just finished yesterday. Oh, that's awesome. And most of my clients are referral based. And so she had heard about me. And so I went in and she's got a beautiful Victorian house, and she had a really pretty wall built, and it was kind of not handmade, but it's a concrete wall, and it's got handmade finishings because it's a vintage, a heritage house.
Yeah, amazing.
And so she spent a big chunk of money on that.
For sure.
And had to wait a while.
Yeah.
And so I went in there and she was finally ready and she was really excited. And she started showing me plans. And then we shared a Pinterest board. And I went home and I did a little bid. And I said, you know what? Your style is really in line with my style. I think this is going to be great. Here's a bunch of photos and a couple jobs I've done. Do you like this look? Do you like where I'm going with this? And this was just planting. So it was pretty easy to get on the same page. And she's like, I love it. And she did ask the question in the email, is this something you would normally design or sketch up? I'm like, if it's just plantings, maybe not. Right. As long as we agree and we have the back and forth on plants and style. And I have the ability to, bring plants out and place them.
That's what I was wondering.
And return them as needed.
Yeah, exactly.
But generally, once I kind of get into plant types and styles and growth and maintenance, people are on board.
Yeah.
Because I have that experience in Sonoma County, with, water use. And the biggest factor, I think, is plant size. Right. And I think we all have, well, not all of us, but a lot of us have smaller homes, smaller backyards, so smaller scale trees and plants. Right. And low maintenance. Everybody wants low maintenance, Yes. Nobody wants a project all the time. Right. They probably already have that. Why replace it with another project, But using small scale plants and a good mix of evergreen plants and deciduous plants so that in the winter there's still some staples there that look pretty. And then you mix in the perennials and the flowers, which pop. But the perennials are where the work comes in, the flowers and the deadheading and the fertilizing and that kind of thing.
Do you do maintenance at all?
I don't do maintenance.
No, so you refer that out maybe?
I do quasi maintenance.
Okay.
I don't do regular maintenance. We don't go do, mow lawns and do regular monthly maintenance. Right. But for my clients, I always offer like a winter pruning.
Oh, okay.
And, I say winter, maybe early spring, January, February is usually a good time. But typically that's a good time to prune anything that's deciduous and evergreen, but then you can also get the perennials, so they're ready for spring. And typically those get a hard prune, down to the ground or down to a really small size, and then the new growth pops out, and you have a new plant every spring. So usually wintertime, early spring's a good time to go do that. And
that's
I offer
good
it,
business time for you too, to offer
it
that,
is.
that's your slower time.
It's timely for me. I'm slow, and we have time to go do that kind of thing.
Cool.
But during the year, we just do all installs, and but I have a really good rapport with all my clients. And like yesterday, we just did I always tell people, like, the final walkthrough, I'm like, just videotape it. I don't want to be on a video.
Right.
But, like, just videotape it, and you'll have it.
Good idea.
And you can look back at it in the spring, or when you need to do this pruning. If you forget, or we forgot something in the video, text me, call me.
Yeah.
In lieu of that, we can come do a little maintenance ourselves. That's a really good
idea, because people will forget a whole year later.
It's
I
hard.
would forget.
And it's plants, and nobody's really
No.
in tune with plants.
No.
And I say nobody.
You
but
are.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
But no, it's not nobody. And I love those clients. This job over here on Keokuk was a referral from another woman from Petaluma who just raves about me on Facebook.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Nancy Porter, she's awesome.
Nancy Porter.
Yeah, she just messaged me the other day and was like, I still love my yard and some that kind of stuff. But the referral thing is so great.
Yeah, that's how my business is as well. It's
there's nothing better.
Yeah.
I'm 90% living off of referrals.
Yes, same. Like when I look back, that's the best compliment,
It's the best compliment.
Yeah.
And as much as I do it for money, it's like I do it for that.
Well, it is. It's really rewarding.
It's really rewarding.
Throwing something out there, does smell ever come into like planning purposes? I was at a touring a house yesterday, and me and another agent were talking about the jasmine, the overwhelming, amazing scent of jasmine as you walk up the door. And that is by far my favorite plant in my house as well. And I look forward to that jasmine smell every season.
That's a great question because it goes both ways.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure it does.
Oh my God, I love the smell of jasmine.
Yes.
Some people are like,
I can't stand that.
Yeah. I don't want to smell the jasmine.
Exactly.
So people feel differently about certain plants,
so
but also, I try to, bring in fragrant, like under a kitchen window.
Right. Right.
Putting something fragrant like a lemon tree, or there's a plant Sarcococa, in February it gets these just really fragrant flowers. You open the window and it's short-lived, but it's wonderful, and jasmine. So it's funny you mentioned that. It's not something that gets talked about a lot.
Funny. Yeah.
I think more people want bees and butterflies.
Yes.
Which is really easy for me.
Yeah.
I mean, literally like taking ugliness and then bringing in some perennials. It's immediate.
And there they are.
There's salvias and so I always feel good about bringing the bees and the butterflies.
I love that. Yeah, we have a bunch of lavender in the front, and I'm like, that has to stay forever because that's where all the bees come. We need to leave it there for them.
But again, that's a huge problem for people.
That's true.
So being
some people
strategic
don't want
about where
you put it. Like I couldn't have it in the backyard with the kids and the pets and all of that.
Rosemary, like don't put. I love that plant, but don't put it near my patio,
because of bees. Oh, good to know.
Especially people with kids and stuff that don't know.
Yes.
And I love bees, and I'm pretty good about being around bees. But I might still use those plants, but I'm a little more strategic.
For sure. And placement.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my daughters is a bee magnet. I don't even know how many times that poor kid's been stung.
I know. I've only been stung twice, but it doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good.
So can you, so sustainability, I can't even talk. Sustainability is becoming increasingly important in landscaping. How does Moonlight Landscapes incorporate any eco-friendly practices into your designs or construction processes? And has that been something clients have been looking for, or are we not there yet?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. People don't directly ask me for that. And, I'm kind of limited in a sense. I think about what I used to do at Gardeners Guild, and we do bioswales and lots of cool things like that. I think in the residential world, there's less room for that. If you've got a bigger property, you can do rainwater harvesting and some other cool things. I just don't know if that's my market. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But just the nature of my business. I'm giving back. I also buy locally.
Great.
And everything, is generated locally. I dispose of things, we recycle everything.
Wonderful.
It's hard to say. Nothing directly. And, I just noticed over time, all my irrigation parts are made in America.
Oh,
A lot of
awesome.
the drip irrigation stuff is made in America,
Great.
wheelbarrows, certain things. So I think just by sheer luck,
Yeah.
I'm doing a good thing. And
Maybe you
obviously I'm
didn't
planting
realize.
trees and,
Right.
we, like I said, we recycle, like one thing is like yard waste. It goes to a compost facility.
Right.
So that's a beautiful thing. That's just, you're creating soil out of it and, going planting vegetables. And so the whole thing, I'll never forget years ago, I was actually working with my dad and we're working on Petaluma Hill Road. And I remember a guy on his bike drives by and just yells out, "Plant some trees." And I'm like, we are.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've always felt good about what I do. And
cool.
yeah, I don't know. I went through environmental studies and I thought about all the ways I could apply, what I learned and that sort of thing. But I think it's really basic when it comes down to it, and it's reuse things.
Right.
So when I get out to a client's house, like, what are we keeping? What goes? How can I dispose of it wisely?
Or can you move certain plants from one?
We can definitely move plants if it's the right time of year.
Okay.
Like deciduous plants, like a Japanese maple, for example.
Yeah.
Assuming it's not super old and mature, you dig it up, and that's a good time to plant it. So if we have a winter job and somebody wants to move, a Japanese maple or deciduous plant, we could do that. Some plants don't lend themselves to, and especially if it's really hot,
right?
They might not just.
Might not make it.
They might not make it. But we still try.
Yeah.
So that's
Definitely.
the first kind of eco-friendly thing I can do is reuse what we have here. Keep trees when possible.
Yeah.
When it's not possible, I get it. Got to put a patio here. So,
right.
But always sad to get rid of a tree.
Yeah.
So I think it's the little things and the accumulation of just what I do, landscaping, and concrete is. Not permeable, so concrete could be the worst thing I do.
Right.
But we also do permeable surfaces and gravel and decomposed granite and that kind of stuff. So there's other eco. So if you're into that kind of thing, I know a lot of things about it, but I don't get people inquiring
about
directly
that, if that's
too
anything
much.
anyone's asking
And I'll say that probably the most impactful thing we do is often we'll take out a lawn and we're installing drip irrigation.
Yes.
The water reduction is huge.
Yes.
So I always feel good about how efficient a drip system is. Water is, goes through an emitter directly to the plant. You're not doing overhead sprayers, spraying water all over the place.
That's fantastic.
So the water savings right there is great.
That's awesome. No, that's super helpful reminder for everybody. I know it feels like because we've had so much rain, the drought is not on people's brains anymore like it used to be.
For
but
sure.
I mean, we don't know how long that'll last.
I think we all talk about it like, oh, and I do talk about that with clients. Yeah. So I think the one thing people do ask for is, drought tolerant plants. And it's a quick conversation because I'm like, I usually use those anyways. And you're doing the drip irrigation. So you're definitely going to be saving a lot of water.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there's certain plants that lend themselves to using less water and trying to use those. And, I also mix in some other ones that are maybe more water, use more water, but it's okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So we have a really unique landscape and climate here in Sonoma County. And you seem just from previous conversation that you really understand this region and how different plants can thrive in this environment. Do you have any, thoughts on growing in Sonoma County as opposed to other places? Sonoma County is where what and grew up.
It's hard to gain perspective because I haven't landscaped anywhere else, but I've been other places and there's obviously different plants everywhere. And so I know what plants do well here. There's deer resistant plants. So some people have deer
that's a very
live
good
out in
point.
the country and they got deer problems, and that's a huge problem.
That is a huge
that takes
problem.
your plant palette and just shrinks it right down.
Literally.
But knowing that is very useful, and knowing what we can use to make it still a pretty space. Gophers, we just did the West Side Petaluma.
That's a big issue.
Laid gophers everywhere and put in gopher baskets. So knowing that, but yeah, generally plant wise, I generally try to talk people out of palm trees.
Oh, okay.
And kind of that Southern California thing. Yeah. They don't do as well here. They obviously live. An issue? We have we have adobe soil, which doesn't drain as well.
Okay.
Although I will say the east side of Petaluma is adobe. It's clay. You get on the west side, this is the most amazing soil. They've got a more sandy, it's sandy loam. So it's just much more easy to dig in. You don't need to amend it as thoroughly.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Okay, no palm trees. They don't do as well.
Yeah, palm trees generally, and it's a look thing too. You know, if you want to go full on, you know, tropical. Southern California tropical. I did my buddy's dad's house, and he's got a pool.
Oh, cool.
And that was a little bit of a challenge because he had palms. He had some that we had to take out because they weren't doing well.
Oh, okay.
But there's certain little date palms, and there's certain palms that do better than others. So just kind of knowing certain plants where you can get that style and that lush kind of look without going full Southern California. Bougainvillea is another one that people love, but it's very frost tender and got to get out there and cover it. It's better off when it's a little bit established, but it's a tricky plant to get going. Kind of need the right little niche spot for it, like tucked up against a house and somewhere where it's a little warmer. But yeah, so there's certain things that I try to talk people out of, but still capturing the style they want, you know? And I think that goes into a lot of landscapes, you know? It's like, you know, I've got a pool. I kind of want palm trees and I want to make it feel like Hawaii. But other people kind of want that winery feel, you know, with the gravel walkways and the lavender and the grasses and so everyone's different. But,
and it's great that you know what's going to thrive here too.
I think that's key, and just knowing what's going to last long term and not get overgrown and not plant a jungle for people that's going to grow into each other. But yeah, also have plants that are going to be that are going to thrive.
That's amazing. So what advice would you give to homeowners who are considering undertaking a landscaping project but may feel overwhelmed or unsure of where to start? Let's say either on their own or if they're thinking about bringing you in, like what would be some good advice for them on step one?
I think step one is think about what your needs are. Let me back that up. I think a conversation I have with people a lot too is how long are you going to be there?
Great question.
You know, and I think that ties into
I was going to say I asked that
the
a lot.
conversations you have. You know, is this your forever house? If it's your forever house, you can go about the whole thought process differently, assuming some money's there and you want to make an investment. But other people are kind of on a 5-year plan, and okay, that's a whole different thought process. So that's kind of a place to start. Like, how much do I want to put into this? And knowing that, the next thing is to think about functionality and what your needs are. You know, if you've got a backyard and you've got no patio and no place to put a table, and that's the starting point. And then, you know, it's hard. The big question eventually, if you're not going to do it yourself, obviously YouTube's amazing. You can do anything yourself, right?
If you know what kind of plants work here, you might get Travis.
I mean, I met a guy in Fountain Grove, and he had found me on Nextdoor, I think, and it was a quick meeting, and he was just real short. He's like, can I do this for this amount of money? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. He's like, let me show you my backyard. And I went in his backyard and he did a really good job landscaping. And I was like, kudos, you know? And I was like, go look at some of my work over around the corner of Fountain Grove.
Same guy.
I don't know. And I didn't hear back from him, but I'm like, great, he's probably going to do it himself. Yeah, it's okay. But but I think at that point, you know, just ask yourself, is this something I can do myself? Or maybe there are portions of it. Let me do the demo. I can do the demo. I can get everything out of here, load it up in a box, or do some dump runs or whatever.
Great idea.
And then I'll call Travis. Or, you know, maybe I know a concrete guy and I'm going to get a good deal on concrete. So let me call the concrete guy.
And then Travis.
And then I'll call Travis.
Yeah, exactly. And then
you don't have to call me.
And then I'll call Travis.
But but I do say that because it's okay to just call me and ask me questions.
For sure.
And usually I can find a way to come meet you. You know, my free consultations, it's you know, it doesn't have to take long, but especially if you're local in Petaluma, Santa Rosa.
Because even if they can't for whatever reason use you, or they end up putting off their plans when their friend is looking for a landscaper, they already know that.
And I can give people guidance too. Be like, here's what I would do given what you've told me. You know, sounds like you're young. You could do the demo. Why don't you do the demo? And you got that buddy who could do concrete. Then call me, and I can come price it out, and you just, you know, save some money that way.
That's amazing.
So yeah,
that's awesome. So coming off of business a little bit, what are 3 fun facts about you personally?
Oh boy. Well, one thing that helps my business out a lot. I'm fluent in Spanish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have Spanish speaking employees,
cool.
and just like me coming into my landscaping business, this was a happy accident. You know, when I used to work with my dad, I would work over the summer, and he had Spanish-speaking employees. And I didn't know the first thing. I was in high school and I was learning at the same time, but it didn't do me any good. I wasn't able to speak. But all the while I was kind of understanding what the guys were saying. And then I just remember one summer I started using it. I think it was shortly after high school, and I started using Spanish, and I started making sentences, and it was all there. And I was very timid. I was very nervous to use it. And I think that's a big hurdle for people. But yeah, I once I started speaking Spanish, then it kind of opened up a whole different relationship with my coworkers, you know, at the time. And great tool. It's paid off. You know, not only there, I went and worked for Gardeners Guild, and I managed 100+ employees. And I remember day one, the new guy, and I'm their manager, and they're like, who's this little guy, you know, and just being able to go out there and kind of talk to them on their, you know, on their level. And it still took time, but having that respect kind of was a big deal. And obviously running my business now, I couldn't do it without it. It's awesome. I have the greatest employees. I have 2 employees.
That's so cool.
It's just us, but having the ability to communicate and understand, and it goes a long way to making our projects better.
That's awesome.
And our lives better. I mean, we're friends too. We love to go get, you know, I love to take them out to lunch. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and they come over for the holidays and that kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to be their friends, I think, is a huge thing. And, you know, when I was at Gardeners Guild, it was a big deal because I was like a manager and I didn't want to just be up here. And so to be able to get out there and work with them and communicate was just huge. So anyway, I speak Spanish, which is great. Oh, I forgot the other half of that. My wife is Latina.
Okay, so
her family's from Mexico. So that is literally how we met. I was working at the Sheridan in Petaluma, and I was in a coffee shop, and I think I was talking to my guys, and I was speaking Spanish, and she kind of did one of these like,
look at that life skill.
Spanish, and anyway, the rest was history. And then
amazing.
I met her family, and her parents were primarily Spanish speaking, which was a big hurdle to get through. Like, I was so nervous every time I had to go there.
But then how impressive that you already flew.
Totally. And I felt that too. I'm like,
guy?
Right,
yeah.
You know? So anyhow, Spanish. Gosh, what else? I love heavy metal.
Ooh. All right.
Right.
Like all the time, like when you're working out or when you're driving or all the time?
That's a great question. I could probably listen to it all the time. Wow. I try not to around my kids, but I'm definitely exposing that too.
They got to be a little bit exposed.
Right. But me and my buddy, we go to shows all the time. We've been to hundreds of shows all over the Bay Area. We're going to go to one on Sunday night. Not a metal show, but yeah, I love live music. And I think we have a really good place here in Sonoma County.
We really do.
For
We're
that.
So lucky.
The Mystic. Lagunitas does little shows. So the more little local shows I can do, the better. I don't have to drive as far.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Love to go see my fave bands, you know.
That's so awesome. Yeah. All right, so heavy metal, Spanish.
Yeah, gosh, I don't even know.
A third?
I don't have a third.
What's your favorite plant?
Great question. My favorite plant is Laura petalum.
Ooh, I don't know what that is.
You see it a lot downtown Petaluma. It's it's got a burgundy colored leaf. And it gets maybe 5 feet
like kind of like a bush kind of
It's a bush.
I can picture this.
But it's just got this really deep burgundy leaf.
Pretty.
Which, to speak to that a little bit, I love color in the foliage, in the leaves, which is a maintenance saver. So if you can balance a mosaic of colors in the foliage, you don't have all the perennials.
Right.
So if I can balance evergreen, something nice and green, with like the Laura petalum, which is burgundy, and like something with a grayish green foliage, like a Dusty Miller or something like that, or Tucreum is another plant I like. So the blend of those 3 colors is striking.
Right.
And then you pop in a lavender or 3 lavender or something. You've got really a nice plant palette with different textures and colors. And I think, so I love that. I just love that plant.
I can picture what you're talking about.
Yeah, you see them on some of these heritage houses, and they get like 5-6 feet tall, maybe bigger. Yeah. But they're just really striking.
Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Well, towards the end of each episode, I like to ask, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to that's really helped you in your career?
Oh, gosh. I have to say Chris Pasquin now.
We have to send this to Shirley and make sure Chris hears this.
Right. No, that's funny. No, shout out to Chris. You've always been a good mentor. I love you, buddy. No, but my dad, he taught me everything I know. I wouldn't be here without him. We're on the phone every day.
That's awesome.
He not only taught me everything about landscaping and plants and how to do the work, but the business side, running a business. He's an ex-CPA.
That's awesome.
He's a tough cookie, which is why we don't work together anymore. But he's just always been a great mentor.
Yeah.
And you know, my sisters too. I have two older sisters.
Oh.
Sierra's a school teacher. And she's always been an awesome big sister. And then Chelsea, also my oldest sister, she's just been an awesome mentor. She runs an interior design business in Santa Rosa. So we both kind of jive on the whole running our business thing. And also we do project work. So we have similarities there. So
that's great.
Shout out to the fam and my mom too. I love you, Mom.
I was like, we can't forget your mom.
Yeah, right. As long as we're here.
If we're saying everyone else in the family.
But yeah, support system,
yeah,
you know?
For sure. Well, and I think to have that balance, because obviously landscaping, there's a huge creative component in there, but then to also balance the business side of things, it sounds like you've had some really good support in that.
You know, honestly, I'm more creative. Like I do better at that, you know?
Yep, for sure.
So business is hard. Nobody wants to be done at the end of a day, a long work day, and go home and make phone calls and do bookkeeping.
Right.
It's not fun, especially when you got kids screaming at you.
Totally.
But yeah, it's hard. So I definitely, but my dad actually enjoys the business part. And so he did that for a long time. So
yeah,
his insight is invaluable.
I love that. Where can my listeners find you if they're interested in hiring you or just chatting with you more?
Yeah, you can go to moonlightlandscapes.com.
Great.
That's my website. And then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome.
At Moonlight Landscapes.
Perfect. And I'll put links in the show notes as well. So people can pull
Awesome.
you up. Thank you so much for coming in today, Travis.
Thank you, Amy.
It makes me want to go hang out in my backyard right now.
Yeah, right? I wish the
it's
sun
pouring
were out.
rain.
Yesterday was a nicer day for
Yesterday
it.
I did hang out in my backyard.
I know, just soak up the sun like a cat.
Yes, totally. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for listening.
If you like what you hear, please be sure to like and subscribe, learn more about Sonoma County and all that we have to offer here.